This is the ClarkCast podcast on clarkcast.com. Brace yourself. This, Saving the Republic, is one broadcast at a time. The ClarkCast with Matt Clark.
Matt Clark, Saving the Republic, one broadcast at a time. My name is the mentioned Matt Clark, and you are listening to the ClarkCast live every Saturday from 1 to 2 o'clock right here on WAAM in the People's Republic of Ann Arbor, Michigan. Also on FTR Radio. www.ftrradio.com is the website to check out Thomas LeDuc and crew. Of course, my website, you should know. Come on. It should be on the tip of your tongue. ClarkCast.com. Yep, it's that simple. ClarkCast.com. My last name, Clark Cast. Like this is a broadcast. Later you will be listening to the podcast. Well, this is the ClarkCast, and welcome to it. You know, I really didn't know which direction to go today. Didn't know what to talk about. I mean, I had things to discuss, don't get me wrong. But I didn't know which way to go. Should I talk about politics? Should I talk about recent events? All of the above? None of the above? Wasn't quite sure which way to go. Even though this show is quite often very heavily concentrated in political talk, what's going on right now, because these are the things that really get me ginned up. One of the taglines, one of the sayings on the show is bringing a surge of energy to the airwaves. This is the ClarkCast with Matt Clark. And yeah, it's cute, it's catchy. But I actually think I am quite energetic on the microphone at times because this stuff tends to piss me off. By the way, I completely backed away from the microphone for your sanity and mine because I am wearing headphones, so everything I hear is actually going right into my ear. So I didn't want to scream in my own ear. You're welcome. But one of the things that I do every week is I look at the news. I look at a lot of the audio that's available to play. Primary source audio is really, really important. And then I also take into account and into factor what is getting me ginned up, what is getting me pissed off, what is really getting me going. And not only that, there's times where we'd also talk about stuff that I'm passionate about, things that I like, things that I think need to get out to the listening audience, to you and to others that just may happen to either scan the dial or maybe they come across this MP3 later online. Today, though, I was going through some stuff. Didn't know which direction I wanted to go for the beginning part of this show. For the last 75% of the show, though, and let me billboard and plug this right now because I think this is fantastic, I'm going to have two gentlemen from Second Call Defense on the air talking about what they do. And a lot of people will say, you know, in the wake of the Louisiana shooting, do you really want to talk about arming yourself? Well, it's not necessarily a discussion about arming yourself. But do you really, Matt, do you want to talk about guns and potentially shooting and all that stuff? Do you think? Yes, actually, I think it's an even more appropriate time to talk about that kind of stuff. So Second Call Defense, going to have some gentlemen on in just a few moments here talking about the program and the services that they offer to help you. If, God forbid, and I cannot emphasize that enough, heaven forbid, please, you never want to do this, but if you have to pull the trigger in your own home in self-defense, these guys they'll have your back. Both at the time, well, not exactly at the time, but moments, minutes after it happens, and also throughout the process, the legal process, the hearing, so on and so forth. Fantastic resource. Been a member for 2-3 years, something like that. But going to talk with some folks from Second Call Defense coming up in just a little bit here. You know, I wanted to even scan what was going on politically, and, covered Donald Trump so much recently, did not want to even touch Donald Trump. Wanted to go nowhere near the Donald because of how much we talked about him. And then I was going through some other things, and I'm not really going to talk about this, but these headlines should shock nobody. Hillary Clinton, capitalism needs to be reinvented and put back into balance. Hillary Clinton, the woman who says, $15 per hour. The whole 2016 campaign is going to be about class warfare, damn it. It's about the workers. Oh, that was pretty good. Not going to touch that one. I mean, it was good for a chuckle. It succeeded in that regard because I'm laughing. Perhaps you're laughing. Perhaps you're just rolling your eyes. I don't know. Can't see you. Another headline that came across my radar, but don't really want to talk about it. But it really does underscore the insanity, how insane and also inane the media is. Headline, the small but significant way the New York Times changed its Hillary Clinton story at the request of her campaign. Yeah, I mean, come on. I'm sure if Ted Cruz or, I don't know, Chris Christie, Jeb Bush called up the New York Times, go ahead and put them on the air right now and just happen to say, you know what, we're going to go ahead and call up the New York Times right now. Go ahead and let it ring. I'm sure they're going to, they're going to answer, because after all, the caller ID, I'm sure, says Ted Cruz for president, so New York Times, I'm sure, is going to pick up the phone, just in case Ted Cruz wants to make a... No, they're not going to do that, come on. But this is so important in many different ways, and again, I'm not going to talk about it because it's funny more than anything else, but it shows you how complicit the mainstream media can be. And without going into the details, it was in regard to her personal email account that was used as when she was Secretary of State, how she was sending classified information through said personal email account when she was Secretary of State. And all of a sudden, oh my gosh, I'm wiping my hands. Can you hear that? That's actually me wiping my hands right now. Her hands were wiped clean. All of the servers were somehow mysteriously, darn shucks, erased. And that was that. Speaking of Hillary Clinton, and like I said, I don't want to talk about that, but I do want to segue. And I think having a good segue in radio is good. Talking about something that's going to tie into the next few segments here. You know, in the wake of the Louisiana shooting that just happened, in advance of gun control, that argument is inevitably, not inevitably, it has resurfaced almost instantaneously. The second it hit the news, cries of more gun control, cries of we need to do something, instantly fill the air. Now I want to play something from Hillary Clinton. I mentioned that awesome segue. Beautiful segue, because that's what we do on the Clarkcast. It's all about great segues here on the show. Rahm Emanuel, former chief of staff to the president of the United States, Barack Obama, and current mayor of Chicago, said something not too long ago, and this has never really left my head. It really has changed the way that I view politics and the way that I view the current media. Everything that happens, I put through the following filter. And if you haven't already, I highly suggest you do the same. Here's Rahm Emanuel from, oh gosh, this is quite old, but take a listen to this right here, because like I said, this is quite telling the way not just the left, but politics in general is played.
You never want a serious crisis to go to waste. And what I mean by that, it's an opportunity to do things that you think you could not do before.
It's an opportunity to do things that you could not do before. Never let a good crisis go to waste. Now, I mentioned that awesome segue, and I think I probably killed it right now because I led with Rahm Emanuel instead of Hillary Clinton, but Hillary Clinton echoed those same exact words right there.
Never waste a good crisis. And when it comes to the economic crisis, don't waste it when it can have a very positive impact on climate change and energy security, and that's what we're trying to do.
Now, she mentioned climate change, energy security, and whatnot, but it's very applicable. Never let a current situation, never let a current event, never let a situation in general, whatever has just transpired in the world of politics, never let that go to waste. It's an opportunity to do things that you normally could not do before, and those are not my words. Those are the words of Rahm Emanuel, echoed by Hillary Clinton right there. Never let a crisis go to waste. And with everything that you've seen, I would say during the Barack Obama tenure, but even beforehand, that's the Saul Alinsky tactic. So when it came to the Louisiana shooting, instantly, there was a cry, there was a push, there was an advancement of more gun control. When it came to the service members that were shot, the recruiters, there were cries of more gun control. One of the things that I've always said on the show is I want an open dialogue. I want an open conversation, and I want to make sure that we have the debate. But all too often, especially when you are dealing with folks that will say, never let a good crisis go to waste, that conversation does not happen. You don't get the dialogue. You don't get the debate. One of the things that, we should talk about is how did this mentally insane nut job, how did he get a gun? Maybe we should have those. But when it comes to gun control in general, and this is the thing that every single American should know, regardless if you like, dislike, or are indifferent to the Second Amendment, every single American needs to know what gun control with air quotes with a capital G and a capital C actually means when it is uttered by anybody in a political situation. If you want to fix a situation, sure, let's fix it. But don't come after the good guys. Don't come after the ones that actually are the law-abiding citizens. And this is one of the takeaway messages from all of the above right here. I want to cut to break just a little early right now.
Matt Clark.
Like I said, coming up after the break, we're going to talk with some folks from Second Call Defense. And this isn't on the heels necessarily of what happened just a couple days ago in Louisiana. No. This is for you. This is my gift to you. Talking about what you need to do in order to be prepared in case the unthinkable happens. Because it's up to you to make sure that you take the right steps to make sure that you are safe, your family is safe, and make sure that the law is followed to your advantage, by the way. More in just a few moments here. If you want to be part of the Clarkcast, 734-822-1600. 734-822-1600. If you want to hit me up behind the scenes, Matt with 2 T's at clarkcast.com. Back in just a few moments here. Keep it locked right on the Clarkcast.
Bringing a surge of energy to the airwaves. This is the Clarkcast with Matt Clark. Follow Matt on Twitter. Go to twitter.com/Clarkcast. This is the Clarkcast with Matt Clark.
All right, welcome back to it. My name is Matt Clark. This right here is the show that unveils the insanity of today's politics every Saturday from 1 to 2 o'clock, right here on WAAM in the People's Republic of Ann Arbor, Michigan. If you want to hit me up behind the scenes, Matt with 2 T's at clarkcast.com. Of course, call up the show right now, 734-822-1600. A service that I've been using, well, actually, I haven't really been using, but I've been subscribed to for quite a few years now. It's called Second Call Defense. I'm going to let one of the partners discuss a little bit more about what they do and how important it is for you to not only protect yourself, but also be armed with the truth. Be armed with what you need to know, not only from a legal standpoint, but from a common sense standpoint in case the unthinkable happens. You actually have to pull the trigger in self-defense. Joining me on the line right now is George Lang and also Sean Maloney. George is a partner with Second Call Defense. Their website is www.secondcalldefense.org, and Sean is an attorney. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. I appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having us, Matt.
I think I only have Sean on the line right now. Is that correct?
Yeah, this is Sean Maloney, attorney for Second Call Defense.
Okay. I think George just left. He'll call right back. Well, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I am doing very, very well. You know, I have to say, I've been excited to talk to you guys for quite some time. And one of the things that I'm a big advocate of, as you are as well, is the Second Amendment. But, you know, with those rights also comes responsibility. But that doesn't quite go far enough. You also need to be armed with the truth, and you also need to know some common sense in the process. And the service that you guys provide and offer, and I'm going to let you take it away a little bit right now, Sean, until we get George back on the line, is, I think, invaluable. So tell us a little bit about what is Second Call Defense.
Second Call Defense is a service, a membership service that provides for immediate upfront protection for anybody who's forced to use a firearm in self-defense or lethal force in self-defense. We all know that as good guys with guns, sometimes, depending upon what jurisdiction we're in, how the investigation goes, or just the policy of that jurisdiction, we may be arrested and we may go to jail. With that in mind, it was important as an attorney over and over again, and selfishly, when I was creating George, I got sick of spending Saturdays and Sundays in jail because my clients couldn't afford bond. And I knew they were innocent. I knew that what they did was legal, both from a self-defense aspect and certainly from the Second Amendment aspect. And so from trigger to trial, we like to say, from the beginning, if you're arrested, we provide immediate bail. And then let's say you're on vacation and you don't know an attorney. We provide 24-hour assistance and services by attorneys throughout the country. So wherever you're forced to use your firearm in self-defense, you're going to have a list of the best attorneys wherever you are at that time. We give you that list, and we provide you with the retainer fee to pay for those attorneys. And in the shootings I've been involved with on the telephone, Matt, oftentimes I end up having three-way conversations with the second call defense client and an attorney from their jurisdiction while we're waiting for the police to arrive or even when the police are there. Beyond that, we keep paying the cost of defense, expert witnesses. Something that came out of some of our focus groups were psychological counseling. We can prepare at the range. We can think we're tough, but we really don't know how we're going to react to that kind of situation. And as an attorney, I make sure that my clients, when they're standing beside me, that they're prepared to represent themselves. They may need some psychological counseling, certainly to help with the PTSD that they're experiencing. I mean, we're not ready. Nobody is for that aftermath. And then beyond that, we take it all the way to the end with compensation for your days in court. One thing that's kind of hidden that people don't realize that I often talk about is the fact that when somebody goes to trial, the financial devastation is always there, and more often than not, a divorce follows. Nobody wins when somebody goes to trial, so having a competent attorney up front that knows the laws, and let's face it, as good guys with guns, we're not necessarily breaking the law. We just don't know the rules and how to play by them, and that's why it's important to have an attorney immediately after you use the firearm in self-defense. And even more importantly, if anybody goes to www.secondcalldefense.org, our website's full of education. How to handle the 911 call. And you know what the purpose of the 911 call is? I always tell people, it's to summon help. It's not to plead your case on the phone. It's not to say, my God, I wish I wouldn't have done this. Why did I do this? It's simply to say, my name is Sean Maloney. I live at 4793 Willows Court. I was in fear for my life. There has been a shooting. The area is clear. Send an ambulance and send the police. And that's it. And then call second call defense. We'll help you calm down, remind you of your constitutional rights and what to do next.
One of the things that, and again, heaven forbid, and I cannot stress that enough, that you have to pull that trigger, but there are times where you have to self-defend. You have to defend yourself. But I can only imagine what it would be like, the aftermath, and not only from your adrenaline's going, your mind's not thinking, and again, this is seconds after it happens, and how easy it is to make a mistake, either talking to the police, and when I say a mistake, that's being recorded. Everything that you say will and can and will be used against you in the court of law. So, Sean, talk a little bit about how important it is when you get somebody on the line to not necessarily talk them down from anything, but to really be there to assure them, hey, look, we're here for you.
Well, and that's what happens when I get the emergency phone calls, and I get quite a few of them. I'm the first person that's going to be called. And we had a shooting. My last shooting took place in Philadelphia. And they got to me before they got to the 911 operator because they really didn't know what was going on. They were so excited. So some of the first things we do is we calm down. We practice 4 square or tactical breathing. We collect our thoughts. Tell me what happened. And in this case, we called and we summoned help from the police. And where the shooting took place, the bad guys ran. There was 3 of them. 1 was shot, and the good guy ran. They all, at least the second call defense member went home and called us. And we contacted the police, reported what happened. It calmed her down, and it took him step by step and reminded him what happened, that he was in fear for his life. And then, and I asked him, I said, where's your firearm now? He said, on my hip. I said, where do you normally keep it? He said, in my nightstand. I said, let's put it in your nightstand. And so we walked through walk everything down, walk him down, because remember, and I'm sure you know, the rush of adrenaline, the norepinephrine rushing through your veins, dumping glucose and sugar, tunnel vision, loss of time and space, hearing deprivation, memory loss, 911, you're being recorded, tell me everything. And that's what we have to correct, make sure that we protect against. I've been a consultant in many cases where the only reason why we were going to trial, or the only reason why there were charges filed, is because the prosecutor just couldn't square with a 911 call with what actually happened. Well, we don't know what we're saying at a 911 call. We have no idea. We're not even competent to be making any statement. And I would remind people, Matt, by the way, that there's not a police agency in the country that allows their police officers to give statements immediately after a shooting, because they know you can't make a statement. We can't accurately identify what's even happened.
No, yeah. The first thing they have to do is talk to the union and isolate that police officer, calm them down. And why shouldn't that be the same for just John Smith?
Exactly.
Calm down. Make sure there's somebody on the line who not only knows what they're doing, what they're saying, but also will be there. Be there to protect you, give you the legal advice that you need, and also tell you the next steps. Speaking on the air right now with Sean Maloney. He is an attorney with Second Call Defense. George Lang just rejoined us right now. I think we had some phone line trouble, but George is going to join us at the end of the break here right after the next segment. And one thing that I really want to stress, go to www.secondcalldefense.org to find a lot of great information for yourself. Secondcalldefense.org. They're not paying me to say any of this, but I've been a member with them for several years now. Definitely worthwhile to check them out. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere.
This is the Clarkcast with Matt Clark. Clarkcast with Matt Clark. Call Matt now, 734-822-1600.
Secondcalldefense.org. www.secondcalldefense.org is a website you need to check out. I've been a member of Second Call Defense for quite a few years now, and one of the things I want to stress, as I normally do when we have a guest or guests on talking about one of their services, is stress I'm not being paid to promote this. They're not paying to be on the air. This is a service I personally believe in. It's a fantastic service for anybody that owns a firearm and for anybody who, heaven forbid, has to do the unthinkable and pull that trigger in self-defense. Joining me on the radio right now is one of the partners of Second Call Defense, George Lang. We finally got him back on, at least I think, and also Sean Maloney, an attorney for Second Call Defense. Gentlemen, I think I have both of you on right now, right?
Yeah, I'm here.
Awesome. We have two of you. Now, George, welcome to the show. One of the things I want to talk about first in the beginning part of this segment here is let's give a little bit of a history around Second Call Defense. How did all of this come to be?
Matt, this started probably about 5 years ago. Sean Maloney, who, by the way, is one of the most avid Second Amendment supporters that I know of. He, along with Ted Nugent, actually serves on the board of the National Rifle Association. Sean came to me about 5 years ago with a concept to build some shooting ranges, women-friendly shooting ranges. He saw what was going on in the shooting industry and how many women were getting their concealed carry permit and this need for women to arm themselves. So as we were doing our research and putting our pro formas together for a business plan for a shooting range, he introduced me to the gun people. And one of the things that kept coming up in our research were stories like that of Harold Fish. Harold Fish was an innocent man from Arizona, used his gun reasonably and justifiably in an act of self-defense. Unfortunately, he spent 3 years in jail, literally died penniless, went through all of his money, all of his savings, and he was ultimately found innocent. And I think I said 3 months. It was 3 years in jail. He was ultimately found innocent, but because he didn't have competent legal advice from the very beginning, he didn't have a chance. And on our website, you'll find case study after case study of people just like Harold Fish. Matter of fact, Sean Maloney and most of the legal experts I know will tell you if George Zimmerman had sound, competent legal advice from the very beginning, we would have never heard of him. Instead, he waited 21 days before he even talked to an attorney. So we
say that again. Hey, hold on, George. Say that
Yep.
once more, because that's powerful.
George Zimmerman waited 21 days before he even talked to his attorney. He had countless hours on video, countless hours on audio recording with the police department that an attorney would have never let him do that. And in addition to that, there was a technical maneuver that any attorney could have made early on, and I'll let Sean expound on that when I'm finished talking about the setup, that would have made George Zimmerman's problems go away immediately. But he didn't see an attorney because the investigators were saying, hey, there's no problem here. We won't let our members make that mistake. So we saw the need to have that attorney up front. And then as we were doing the research, we found insurance programs. And if you notice, our plan is backed by the NRA-endorsed insurance plan. But the problem with an insurance plan as it relates to criminal defense coverage is it is only a reimbursement. They cannot pay you up front. It is against the law in America for an insurer to cover a criminal act or to cover what is called an intentional act. And if you're charged with a crime, you are a criminal until charges are dropped or until you're proven innocent. And if someone's breaking into your house and you stop them, you intended to stop them. It was not an accident. So the traditional insurance plans that were out there weren't working for people because, Matt, most people don't have 10, 20, 30, 40, $50,000 laying around to get through the trial and get to the point where charges are dropped to then be reimbursed. So it took us about 3 years before we launched to figure out the right formula of exactly what we had to do, and actually about $250,000 in legal expenses for us to come up with a mechanism where we can give the money to our members in advance when they need it, as Sean said, likes to call it day $1, and then we get reimbursed from the NRA endorsed insurance program. So that was really the genesis of Second Call Defense.
Sean, George just mentioned you a little bit, and go ahead and pick up from there.
I always like to talk about it. When people ask me as an attorney, what would you have done for George Zimmerman if you were involved in the case? And I always say, well, what would Second Call Defense have done? Simply put, there was a full investigation by the Sanford Police Department. They interviewed over 72 people. The prosecutor's office in Sanford took a look at everything and said, you know what? He did everything he had a legal right to do. There's been no crime committed. George, we're not going to charge him. And then that hit the news. There weren't going to be any charges filed. And George still didn't have an attorney. But then all of a sudden you heard all the noise from MSNBC.
Politics came into play.
From everybody else saying, we need justice for Trayvon Martin. Well, any competent attorney, as soon as he would have started hearing that, would have went to the prosecutor and said, hey, knowing all the evidence against George, we need to send this case to the grand jury. Let them dispose of it. See, once the grand jury rules on a case, double jeopardy attaches, and it's over with. We never would have heard of George Zimmerman, but George didn't have an attorney, and something that would have commonly and simply been done didn't get the chance to occur. And if you can remember back that far, when they brought in the special prosecutor, the first thing she did was announce that she wasn't going to send it to the grand jury because she felt there was enough evidence to go forward.
Yep.
Well, if you watched any part of that trial, you knew that was ridiculous. There was no evidence whatsoever. So, some of the things, it's very important that you just have a knowledgeable attorney right from the beginning. And I've heard people give advice, well, you don't need an attorney until after the grand jury meets. Well, you can do a lot before the grand jury meets. And that's just one of the things that goes along with having competent legal representation.
Sure. Speaking right now with George Lang and also Sean Maloney, both are with Second Call Defense. Their website is www.secondcalldefense.org. Secondcalldefense.org. Now, gentlemen,
if you tell your listeners also, if they go to our website, go to plans and pricing, George and I will let them choose any plan and any pricing plan that they want, and we'll pay for the first month free. I want them to try it out. I'm so confident that when they get educated by our website and when they get involved in what's going on, that they'll love it just the way you do. And then have them enter, say, ClarkCast and offer code, and we'll pay for the first month for free.
So go to secondcalldefense.org. And again, I'm not being paid to say this. I feel like that's a thing that radio hosts have to do. I'm not getting paid to say this. I've been a member of theirs for several years now. Go to secondcalldefense.org. As George just said, enter in promo code ClarkCast. Secondcalldefense.org, promo code ClarkCast, and get that first month free. And there's several different plans to choose from, correct?
That's correct.
Fantastic. Let's do this. Let's walk through this once more because I have a Second Call Defense membership card, and on the back, it has some very specific instructions. What you need to do when you call 911, what you need to do after you get off the phone with 911. But let's do a scenario here, gentlemen. Let's say that somebody comes into John Smith's house, and John Smith has to do the unthinkable. He has to pull a trigger in order to defend himself. What is the next step?
Well, the first thing that he should do is he needs to calm down. He needs to make sure that he's safe and that the threat is gone. And then as any good law-abiding citizen, he needs to call 911 to summon help. And then hopefully, as a member of Second Call Defense, he's read the training, he's practiced the 911 call, and he knows that the purpose of that 911 call is to summon help. And he calls and said, my name is John Smith, my address, I was in fear for my life, send an ambulance and police. And then the second call should be the Second Call Defense, where an attorney is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every day of the year to calm Mr. Smith down first, to go over what just happened, and then to make sure that he's aware of his rights as the police roll up to his house. Because remember, his house isn't his house anymore. As soon as the police arrive, his house is now a crime scene. He's going to simply point out the bad guy, any evidence, any witnesses, and he's going to hopefully calmly tell the police. And usually I've been on the phone with somebody to remind them to tell the police they'll be happy to cooperate, but you really don't have anything to say and you're invoking your Fifth Amendment rights until after you've had an opportunity to calm yourself and speak to an attorney. Because let's face it, folks, there's nothing that can be said right now that can't be said 4 days later. And more importantly, Matt, like you mentioned earlier, the police department is getting the same advice for their officers. So let's just treat each other the same.
Exactly. Now, second call defense, an attorney on the other line will actually talk to the police officers, will they not?
That's correct. I've had several occasions where, in fact, the Philadelphia shooting I talked about earlier, I talked to the police on several occasions, asked them what's going on, informed them that that the client was represented by Pennsylvania counsel that had been retained, by the way, while we were on the phone, and that he had nothing to say, but he will cooperate. So, the member of second call defense and I talked. It was 45 minutes from the time he called 911 until the police made it to his house. That's probably not unusual in a big city situation. We talked, we calmed him down, we went over things. He disarmed himself, he put his gun where he normally keeps it at night because I didn't want him going to the door with a firearm because who knows what kind of information the 911 operator just gave the police officer. So it's a common occurrence for an attorney to talk to the police, and that's one thing that you can be assured that will provide you with that kind of benefit.
And Matt, let me just add one more thing about why it's so important. Sean talked earlier about the physical reactions that you're going to have after you've been involved in a shooting and the emotional reactions. But imagine this. It's 2:00 in the morning. You hear somebody breaking into your house. You wipe the sleep out of your eyes. You have no idea what's going on. You walk to the top of your stairs and you see somebody in the house and he's coming at you. You say, "Stop, I have a gun." He's not stopping that. You say, "Stop, I have a gun." He's not stopping. Boom! You exercise what I believe to be your God-given right to self-defense. Now, the kids are awake. The wife is screaming. There's blood everywhere. There's no way you are going to be able to think rationally and calmly as to what to do next, which is why your second call is always going to be the second call defense, where we're going to help you through what is probably the most traumatic situation that you've just been through in your entire life. And nobody should attempt to go through that on their own.
Now, with the 911 call, one of the things that has been emphasized and that I've heard, and I'm sure you're going to clarify me if I misspeak here, you only want to give them the bare minimum. Where you are, what just happened, please send an ambulance, I was in fear for my life, I acted in self-defense. And once the 911 operator has all the information, location, what happened, so on and so forth, you need to hang up because she or he will try to keep you on the line as long as possible. Is that correct?
That's 100% correct. I always tell people, treat the 911 call as the first contact you have with police because it is your first contact and it is being recorded. And more importantly, you need to understand that these 911 operators are trained. Most police officers and most police departments through the country are trained in the Reed technique of interrogation and investigation. They know that they can get more information out of you right now when you're acting under the stress and the strain of this situation than any other time. And so they'll try to keep you on the phone, and they're going to call back. You're going to hang up, they're going to call back, and hopefully you're going to be on the phone with me or another attorney from second call defense, and you're not going to answer that phone because we're otherwise preoccupied. But now you're 100% correct. And, I always tell people, we practice this 911 call because we're not going to know what to say or what to do. As George explained, there's the stresses of this situation. So it's important that we even practice how to summon help. And it's even more important to understand that everything we say is being recorded. So when we say, "Oh my God, I can't believe I did this. Why did I shoot somebody?" Somebody can try to use that against you. In fact, if you listen to any of the George Zimmerman trial, which is kind of humorous to me, there were 5 911 calls made. George Zimmerman didn't make any of them, and every 911 operator was on the stand testifying against George Zimmerman, and that's going to happen on a regular basis. And it's not so much that they have evil intent, but that's what they're trained to do. And we need to understand that right from the beginning, they're gathering information that we're not confident to make any statements at that point in time. I've been a consultant in a case where there was a shooting that took place. It was an otherwise perfect self-defense situation. As the wife, the good guy, was applying direct pressure to the gunshot wounds with a 911 operator on the line, the defendant, the husband who protected the wife, was putting his firearm away in his truck. He started screaming, "USOB, I hope you bleed to death. You're bleeding like a stuck pig. I should have shot you again." He has no recollection of making those statements. Yes. With all the stress, the neophrephrine, and the adrenaline, he's screaming uncontrollably, and he has belligerently, and he doesn't even remember any of it. When I spoke to the prosecutor said, you know what, it was a perfect shooting, but I can't explain these statements, and that's why I sent it to the grand jury. Well, with an expert witness or some calm deliberation, you explain that because of the adrenaline rushing through our system, because of the neophrephrine, because of the pressures of what's going on right now, we're going to react like that. And when the prosecutor learned from me about that and did a little bit more independent research, he dismissed the charges because he realized that was cops.
Let me ask you a question. Let's say in that hypothetical scenario I painted earlier, John Smith does everything right. Let's say it was a legitimate, legal self-defense shoot. He calls 911. He's just very brief, just the details. Calls second call defense. But it seems, even in that hypothetical scenario, and Sean, as a lawyer, you know in the justice system, you are innocent until proven guilty. However, when it comes to self-defense shootings, it seems the opposite. You are guilty until proven innocent, at least in the eyes of the prosecutor and the law enforcement, so on and so forth. Does that not seem the case, or am I misspeaking? What are your thoughts?
No, Matt, that's exactly right. In Ohio, for example, the burden of proof in a self-defense shooting, when you're using the affirmative defense of self-defense, is on the defendant. And the defendant, remember, is the good guy. It's us who are sound asleep in our house under George's scenario at 2 o'clock in the morning when we were forced to use a firearm. I always tell people, when you knowingly, intentionally shoot somebody in self-defense, and it better be knowingly, and it better be intentionally, because we're not accidentally doing anything. There's a whole other bunch of problems that come from that. But when we knowingly, intentionally kill somebody, there's a death. It's a homicide, and it's going to be investigated. It doesn't matter where you are, but again, there's a dead body or there's somebody that's severely wounded, and there's going to be an investigation. And it doesn't really depend upon where you're at. The first thing to do is try to find out what's happened. And because of that investigation, you're going to have to provide information that you're going to be expected to. And we want you to provide that information, but not until you've had an opportunity to speak to your attorney, collect your thoughts, and understand what's happened. Yeah. So you're completely right. Throughout America, and I think you can tell when you hear about a self-defense shooting on the radio or in the news or on the internet, and you read it, you're thinking, well, wait a minute. The investigation is continuing, and then they say the police have decided not to charge the person acting in self-defense. So there's always going to be an investigation. So don't you think, like in Harold Fish's case, in George Zimmerman's case, and any number of cases out there, just because the police say you did everything you had a legal right to do, there's not going to be any charges filed against you. And in the Zimmerman case, when the prosecutor tells you that, it may not be over, so you have to make sure that you're protecting yourself, and have an attorney immediately available. And that's one thing that George and I discovered early on with second call defense. We had to have the ability to make a phone call with one phone call. As an NRA instructor, I teach basic pistol for concealed carry in Ohio. And more than one occasion, I've said, who are you going to call? And when I'm teaching the Ohio law, then one day finally I said, wait a minute, who am I going to call? As a criminal defense attorney for 24 years, when I have to question what I'm going to do, I said, wait a minute, we need something. We all need something with one phone call. We've been arrested. We need bond. We need an attorney for the arraignment. We need a retainer fee. We need to find out who we're going to call. Well, who are we going to call? Well, with one phone call, second call defense takes care of everything from trigger through the trial.
Second Call Defense, www.secondcalldefense.org, secondcalldefense.org. Sean Maloney is an attorney. I want to thank you for coming on. George Lang, I appreciate all that you both are doing. This is a fantastic service, one that I do believe in. That's why I've been a member for several years now. And if you, the listener, want to use the promo code ClarkCast, go to secondcalldefense.org, go to the pricing, use the promo code ClarkCast. You'll get the first month free. Gentlemen, thank you for what you're doing. I say that from the bottom of my heart with all sincerity. And Sean, I think I finally met a lawyer I liked.
I'm glad to hear you say that. And I was happy to hear Ted Nugent on your promo, because as a member with him on the NRA board of directors, it's important that people like Matt Clark, Ted Nugent, Sean Maloney, Carl Malone are out there, because every morning someone gets out of bed and wants to take your Second Amendment rights away from you, and it's important that you protect those rights. And I want to thank you for everything you do.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
I just want to reiterate what Sean said. Matt, thanks for your time. Thanks for everything you do. And also want to let you know we are calling from Southwest Ohio, home of the Overman Warrior.
Yeah.
I want to let you know that as well.
Shout out to Rich Hoffman out there. Thank you, Rich. Shout out to you for putting us all together here. I appreciate that. Gentlemen, you have an open invite on this program anytime. Thank you.
Thank you, man.
All right, take care. More on the Clarkcast when we come back. Don't go anywhere.
This is the Clarkcast with Matt Clark. a surge of energy to the airwaves. This is the Clarkcast with Matt Clark.
SecondCallDefense.org, www.secondcalldefense.org. Gary Welling's over there checking out some of the rates. And again, I'm not a paid spokesman. I really like these guys. I think they're doing an awesome job and they have a great service. Low as $9 a month. Peace of mind. What kind of price can you put on that? SecondCallDefense.org. Hit the pricing tab at the top. Use promo code ClarkCast. If you want, and this is so great, if you want the first month free, use that promo code right there. Thanks for listening to this week's edition of the Clarkcast radio program. As always, check out my website, www.clarkcast.com, for show highlights and more. I think it's a great website. Also very, very easy to use on your mobile phone. It's a responsive site. So even if you're just on the go, clarkcast.com. Latest show will be up momentarily. Give me a day or so. In the meantime, be safe. Take care. Catch you next week.
For show highlights and more, visit www.clarkcast.com.